With the looming tariffs, the Japanese automakers that make a lot of vehicles from Mexico and Canada, have been mass producing them. Check this out. They are in a bit of a scramble to get as many cars over the border before the tariffs become enacted. Guys, we're going to talk about this fascinating developing story today, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to talk about how Tesla can actually be one of the safest companies in regards to the tariffs, but I question that as well. All right. Now we're also going to talk about what Canada, like what's the developing story with Canada and the reciprocal tariffs that they're going to put on the cars. Akio Toyoda and his thoughts about the merger from Honda and Nissan. That's fascinating. And then Foxconn trying to woo everyone in Japan to take their EV components. Guys, grab your snacks and drinks, buckle in. If you guys like car news, make sure you are subscribed. I try to update you guys every day. I'm flying out. I'm still in Puerto Rico after driving the new Honda Passport. The embargo, I believe, is April 1st, 9 a.m. So stay tuned. All right, I'll have an off-roading driving impressions and an on-road driving impressions. I can't wait to share both of them. So let's get into this. Japanese automakers send more cars to the United States from Mexico, especially Mexico. I mentioned Canada. They probably are doing that as well. Shipments jumped 17% to build up the inventory. I don't have any data from the American automakers or the German automakers like Volkswagen and Chevy, for example, that build a ton of vehicles down in Mexico. I bet they're doing the exact same thing. I can't find any data on it. But the Japanese companies, though, sent 217,000 vehicles to the U.S. from Mexico between December to February. That is up 17% from a year earlier. Now, we'll see, like, is it just to get ahead of tariffs? I think there's some more to this, especially when we get to the Tacoma. If you've been living under a rock, tariffs start, well, this says April 3rd. I believe it's April 2nd is when they get enacted, and then April 3rd they're going to collect. Whatever that means. All right, so tariffs are coming April 2nd, April 3rd. Honda exports increased just 4% to 43,000 units for the 3-month period. I wish I had data for like the last month, all right, to see where things are going. Honda builds HRV down there, but they also build the ADX, the brand new Acura ADX, same platform in the Celaya plant down there. The ADX should be arriving at dealers. Watch my driving impressions on it. It's a good luxury car, not a good performance car. It's going to sell well because it's a crossover and it's an entry-level vehicle. It'll sell well despite it being severely underpowered. Anyways, in 2024, there were 170,000 HRVs exported. That is a ton. Now, that plant down there for Honda can only produce about 200,000 vehicles per year. If they're at maximum capacity, there'll be about 30,000 ADXs being produced out there. But again, this was all pre-tariff. So who knows what this volume is going to be going forward. All right, so 10% of Honda's sales volume comes from Mexico. There's probably about the same, if not more, also coming from Canada, where they build the CRV, a CRV hybrid, and they also build the Civic sedan and the Civic sedan hybrid and the Civic SI. I think the Civic SI is built up there. All right, so the economic impact of the new tariffs on Honda is expected to be almost $5 billion. Okay, the presidency has said that Honda is no longer planning to build the next gen Civic down in Mexico. They would have to build a new plant, right? Because this plant, Celaya, the current one, is already at max capacity in theory. So they'd have to build a new multi-billion-dollar factory down in Mexico. Trump keeps saying, hey, Honda's building a new factory in Indiana. We don't have any proof of that other than his word. Because Honda, everyone I've talked to from Honda, it's like, well, we already make the Civic at Indiana. Could they improve the plant? Yes, they can make improvements on it to account for the larger capacity of the Civic volume that going there. But until we have an official announcement from Honda, it's kind of, I kind of take it with a grain of salt with the whole Civic moving to Indiana, building a bigger plant there. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of a plant being built in Indiana. There's existing plants there, right? Shinji Aoyama, a Honda executive vice president who serves as risk management officer. There's a lot of risk going on. In February, he said that the company would try to send Mexican Canadian built vehicles to the United States earlier, possibly that month, ahead of tariffs. Yes. Run at the red line, make sure that VTEC kicks in along the way, and crank out as many cars as you can to get in before the tariffs. Toyota builds the Tacoma in Mexico, to much chagrin of Toyota fans. It used to be built in California, it used to be built in San Antonio. All of them are now made in 2 separate plants down in Mexico, one in Guanajuato and one in Baja. So they saw the largest increase in exports from the country amongst Japanese automakers. 64,000 units for the 3 months ended February. Now, that's almost 4 times what we saw last year. 4 times? That's insane. But here's the huge asterisk. Toyota was completely stumbling out of the gate to get the new Tacoma, the new generation on the F platform, into production. They had parts issues. They had all sorts of issues ramping up production. I don't know how much of this figure is to get out ahead of the tariffs and how much of it is just they're operating at normal production capacity right now. For example, we have 64,000 units times 4, because that's over a 3-month period that they produced them. 256,000. Is that outpacing what the normal Tacoma sales are? Well, let's look. Okay, so before 2024, all right, with the previous gen Tacomas, they're selling at 234K, 215K. 2021, best year ever for Tacoma, that was 252K. So yes, it does seem like Toyota's running at a much higher clip these last 3 months, all right, because the volume here would be a record-setting volume if they were able to continue at that pace, which is not going to happen, all right, especially with the tariffs. So this number, this 64,000, is probably a record in terms of quarterly or a 3-month span export volume to the United States. Moving on, is Tesla really the one benefiting the most here from the tariffs? Well, people have done some calculations on it, and there is a possibility that Tesla might come out the least affected. But essentially, I'm going to sum up this article, is that their prices would still go up potentially 2%, where most automakers, on average, their prices will go up 7% based off of the tariff situation. I'm not so sure, because yes, Tesla has fewer parts and they're 100% American made in the United States. But when I think BEV, I think battery pack, like where are the minerals coming from? And I don't know 100%, like, because if they're coming from China, the tariffs on China is just insane right now. There's other supply chains out there to get lithium and other minerals needed for batteries from other countries. But I'll just wait till the dust settles here. Some people have been theorizing that, Musk is the one wanting these tariffs. No, he's come out and said that the tariffs are not good for the company. He says, to be clear, this will affect the price of parts in Tesla cars that come from other countries. The cost of impact is not trivial. The demand on Teslas is already fallen out of the sky. And what's happening too right now, since terrorists or vandalizers or just really shitty human beings are destroying Tesla cars right now, because of that, the insurance is skyrocketing, making them less affordable. So real crappy situation. I don't have the article pulled up. It seems to be the administration, the president, is working on getting interest on loans tax deductible, but it's not the biggest issue we have on hand right now. All right, so there's been a lot of Canadian media here at this event too from Honda down here in Puerto Rico. That's got to be nice for them, escaping the cold weather up there. But Canada, how are they going to respond to Trump auto tariffs? Well, I don't think it's in place yet. Interim Prime Minister Carney, he said they'll fight the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that have maximum impact on the United States and minimum impacts on Canada. Of course, Europe has threatened retaliations as well. After speaking to some of the Canadian media here, there's some problems. So just because, like, here's an example. If you wanted to buy a car in Canada that's built in Mexico, the problem is, well, if it enters into the United States, it's going to get tariffed before it heads to Canada, and then get tariffed potentially again by the time it gets to Canada after it crosses the northern border. So that is a problem. I think they would have to, in theory, how I see it, they would almost have to like freight the cars to a port, put them on a big boat, and ship the cars via boat. But I don't know how much costlier that would be than the tariff situation. Like, again, I would assume it would be cheaper. Also, they were saying that Canadians want to buy as many Canadian-made products as possible. So what do we have made up in Canada? Well, you have quite a few. You have a Silverado made up there, maybe Silverado HD. You have Civic, you have CRV, you have RAV4, you have Lexus NX, RX. You might have some Jeep products, some Stellantis products. I'm not 100% sure on the domestic side of things. So there are a lot of Canadian-made cars that would not be tariffed, at least to a massive extent. You got to keep in mind all those cars have parts on it still from the United States and Mexico that could be tariffed to the moon. So yeah, it's messy everywhere here in North America with this tariff situation, and that's why it's fun for me to talk about. But we're going to move on. Akio Toyoda finally shared his thoughts about the failed merger between Honda and Nissan. He essentially boiled it down to he was disappointed that the merger talks really only talked about cost synergies, management integration, combined revenue and profit estimates. They only spoke about money. And they got lost on the product. You got to remember, Akio Toyoda is a fan of cars first and foremost. He's the reason why Gazoo Racing exists, why the Celica is coming back, the Supra, the GR Corolla, the GR Yaris, the GR86. Without him, none of those would exist. All right. And so he was hoping to hear out of these merger talks that there would be, good news for old nameplates coming back, right? Things like he also brought back and expanded the Crown lineup, Akio Toyoda. So him being a fan of Japanese cars, he's probably wanting to hear things about, the Silvia, or how the NSX and GTR could potentially, find a way to work together. And there was none of that. There was no talk about cars, the passion. There's zero passion. It was just numbers, seemingly. And in today's world, Toyota can kind of still get away with coming out with sports cars that might not make a lot of money because the vast majority of their lineup is like RAV4s. So they print money with the volume cars, and then they drive interest in the brand with the racing cars. That's an age-old tactic, right? We're going to keep moving. Foxconn plans EV event in Japan to woo the Japanese manufacturers. This is getting interesting. Foxconn is holding a seminar in Japan April 9th to lay out its strategy on EVs, as it wants to court more Japanese automakers after winning a deal from Mitsubishi Motors. The deal from Mitsubishi Motors, I have not seen it be finalized. I haven't seen Mitsubishi or Foxconn come out with an official statement. Maybe there will be one soon, and if maybe Reuters has an inside scoop that it's officially a done deal. But stay tuned. Apparently, Foxconn was working with two Japanese automakers to secure a partnership, and one of them flaked out. So maybe that just leaves Mitsubishi. I don't know. The contract manufacturer from Taiwan makes iPhones, of course, artificial intelligence, and they want to boost their EV strategy among automakers and suppliers. Now, you got to keep in mind, all right, this is their chairman at Foxconn, but the leader of their automotive end of things is Jun Seki, and Jun Seki used to be an executive at Nissan. So he has his eyes and heart on these Japanese automakers. Wow. Okay, so this April seminar comes shortly after two sources said Foxconn sealed the deal to make EVs for Mitsubishi to be sold in Oceania, including Australia. So we might not. That's Mitsubishi's strong area, is that area of the world. And I guess they're like, hey, we're going to be losing to the Chinese. They already are in a lot of ways to the Chinese in those areas of the world because they don't have compelling EVs, or maybe not an EV at all, right? So they're like, hey, let's do a deal with Foxconn here so we have something to compete. But maybe those vehicles might not come to the United States at all. I mean, Mitsubishi in the United States doesn't, I mean, they're not looking solid at all. They might just disappear stateside and focus on Oceania. That's a possibility. And they also could be sold in New Zealand and Taiwan. Doesn't look good for the United States market. I mean, Mitsubishi needs all the help they can get. However, Foxconn also has a plant, what is it, in Ohio or something, somewhere in that area, around the Great Lakes, if I remember right. Maybe it's Wisconsin. Foxconn has a plant there. They don't build anything out of it. Maybe Mitsubishi can contract them to build something there for the United States market. Who knows? Lastly, the Meta plant in Georgia that just opened up that builds vehicles for Hyundai. For example, the EV9 is going to be built there, the Ioniq 5. Kia is going to be producing hybrid cars there next year. This article doesn't say which vehicle is going to be produced there or which hybrids. In the United States, Kia makes a few hybrids, or should I say a few vehicles here. Specifically, the Kia Telluride is made in the United States. Maybe they make a hybrid version of that there. It could be the hybrid Sorrentos, maybe Sportage. I mean, and you got to think all the K4s are built in Mexico, and they make a ton of them down there. Forgot to mention that. Hyundai also makes a Tucson down in Mexico too. So I wonder how much these manufacturers, the Koreans, are scrambling to get the production up and into the United States before the tariffs hit. But this plant is going to be massive. Hyundai is expanding the capacity from 300,000 units in Georgia to 500,000. So this is a joint plant between Hyundai and Kia, which makes sense. I mean, they're essentially the same company as it is. And that brings Hyundai's and Kia's U.S. capacity to 1.2 million vehicles per year. Some of the highest. I think that ties around Toyota's U.S. production for an automaker. After Mexico, South Korea is also the world's largest exporter of vehicles to the United States, followed by Japan. So 1, 2, 3, Mexico, South Korea, Japan for cars coming into the United States. Kia Motors currently produces most of its hybrid cars, including the Sportage crossover, in South Korea. Okay, so they need to get that hybrid production up stateside instead of being tariffed on the incoming ones. Song said the new U.S. factory would help Kia's target of boosting U.S. sales to 1.25 million vehicles a year, up from 850,000 currently. It's possible, but the market is just like it's leveling off. So they would have to siphon sales from other manufacturers. Nissan, the domestics, Toyota maybe. I mean, there's a lot of pie out there that needs to be gobbled up. That's an extra 40,000 vehicles. Now, when do they want to hit this? I don't know, but we'll see what happens with Kia. If you guys enjoyed this coverage, especially with the shifting sands and the drama that is tariffs, make sure you are subscribed. I got to cut this off, start packing, and head back home. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Try to avoid those tariffs, I guess. Peace out.